Okay, I'm going to continue now with part two of how to democratically elect the president. In part one, we established that the states, that the United States is a democracy, and that inherently requires equality of participation and equality of suffrage to reach a majority consensus. And that each state in that democracy is entitled to have some of their own citizens considered and their own representatives considered in every aspect of the government, including the assembly and the operation of the government, where committees come into play, where every state has a right to have at least one of their own representatives on every committee. And the committee cannot have an empowered chairman. In fact, the committee cannot reach a vote to reach a majority consensus to do anything. But the way that the committee is tasked, the committee is to identify and rank choices and to make cost-benefit analysis in relationships that then the full Congress can consider and make a choice, determine a choice by vote. Okay, so basically, it's a investigative or identification type of a phase to narrow down the choices to the best choices that based on cost benefit. And costs don't always have to be monetary. There are opportunity costs. There are other kind of costs that go into making a decision, one over another, and there might be 2 or 3 possible solutions that you can choose from that will solve the problem equally as well, or make the choice equally as well. And that's where the majority consensus by vote comes into how they choose which choice they collectively agree to. And electing the president is no different. So the process for electing the president has to meet these criteria. You need to have a quorum just to identify and rank the choices and determine the top choices that will then be considered by the full body. Okay? And this is how the consensus choice process works. It's split into 2 phases. One assembly identifies and ranks the choices that the second assembly must consider to make their choice. So one makes the list, the other makes the choice. The one that make the list can't make the choice. They can't make the choice at all. The ones who make the choice, they can't decide who to consider. Okay? They're forced to consider the top choices from the first assembly. Okay? And why is that important? Well, that's important because all the states have to agree that on the choice by a majority of all the states by vote, one vote per state. So the names on the list have to be agreeable to all those states. You can't just have the political parties determining who the states have to consider for president. And that's what's wrong with what we're doing today, is we're forcing the states to consider only the two parties' choices. Why do the states have to consider their choices at all? So in reality, when those Electoral College votes reach Congress, the states don't have to even consider those results. Not even one bit. Number one, all the electors have to be appointed at the same time in every state. And they have to assemble to give their votes and make their list on the same day. And the way it's written, it says the day must be the same in every state. Okay? Which assumes that the appointment of electors can be made on the same day, like in the morning, and then they can give their votes that afternoon and then transmit their list sealed and certified by the electors at 5 o'clock that evening, to where it's all done in one day. Why would you do that? Well, that makes it to where people can't do what we're doing today, because there's no way that one state can know what another state is choosing for their electors. And there's no way one state can know what another state's electors are considering to put on their list. So there's just no way to do a national vote or national determination, okay? But what we really want to do in this part is, well, how do you do it to determine how many choices each state can make from within their own state and from other states? Because under the democratic process, each state is allowed to have a fixed number of choices that they must make from their own state. Okay? They can't choose from other states. But under the Republican process, they have as many choices as they have representatives and senators in the Congress. That's how many electors they have, and each elector has 2 votes to make their choices. So they have double the number of choices. But they have to make a list of all persons receiving votes, the number of votes, and for which office, because of the 12th Amendment. What does that mean? Well, if the voting booth is a replacement for the electors, then the state has to report in their list all persons receiving votes not just who won, because they can't win a majority of, they can't win all the votes, because that's not what they were asked to do. They were asked to report all persons receiving votes, the number of votes, and for which office. So no matter what, if they're going to replace the electors with Electoral College votes, and those votes are based on popularity, popular votes of the people, then they need to take those votes that they received in the election and form a percentage to the number of votes, and then multiply that percentage by the total number of Electoral College votes they have in their state. And then that's how they make their list to determine the number of votes each, the person, the number of votes, and for which office. Okay? That's what needs to be, that's required to be reported. So there's really no way for you to win the election at the voting booth on election day. No way at all. And you can't win on the basis of the electors, because if they report the votes that each Electoral College votes that each candidate got as a percentage of the votes they got in each state, then nobody would have a majority in Congress. So then you have to take the top 3 for president, and the states have to consider those top 3. So say that top 3 was, even if a person like Bernie Sanders got 1 write-in vote, okay, in a state, 1, all right, he would have to get 1 Electoral College vote because he's there, and he has to get a vote reported by their state. When they get to Congress, let's say they had Trump, Harris, and Bernie with 1 vote. When they do the vote in Congress by state, 1 per state, they can choose Bernie. They don't have to choose either Harris or Trump. Okay? Now, yes, the Electoral College system has more problems than that. Okay? More. It's invalid in so many ways it doesn't even make sense to even talk about. But we have to follow the quorum requirements and the majority consensus requirements, which are that the quorum has to be formed by a majority of all the people. Participation of 2/3 of the states. The people of 2/3 of the states have to participate in the electoral process for it to operate. And the people, all the people must participate, and that's where you get your electors, because the electors are a representation of all the people. Okay, an exact representation of all the people. Okay? And then when it gets into Congress, in order to be elected on the votes of the electors, it has to be a majority of all the people. And in order to be, and when there is no majority of all the people, then it has to be a majority of all the states. Okay? One vote per state. And no, California doesn't get one proportional vote, which would give them more of a say in who the president was. They get one equal vote. Period. Same as Rhode Island, same as Wyoming, same as Montana. All the states have one equal vote to determine the president, when the president isn't determined by a majority of the electors, which is a majority of the people. I'm gonna stop there for part 2, and then we'll continue with part 3 to sum up how the process is actually supposed to work and what we need to do to fix it. Thanks.